Well, welcome everybody. This is our first episode of our yet to be named podcast. This is completely unscripted. Just kind of going with the flow, see what happens. I guess I should introduce myself, right? So my name is Jose Mata. I am currently a full-time graduate student in ecology. In my free time, I like to hunt and fish, specifically fly fishing. But I have a passion for really all things outdoors. And my partner,
Russell. I am not in school for ecology, nor do I have any degree in outdoor related things. I'm actually more an engineer of trade. I work for a telecommunications company, but I am very passionate about ecology and conservation. More than anything, I hike, kayak, and fly fish, but I'm interested in everything to do with outdoors and conservation. So I feel like this is a good way for both me and Jose to put information out there that might be easier digestible than, reading studies and stuff like that, to people that may not be as experienced or people that are and just enjoy it. I feel like this is going to be a good way for us to put information out there and share stories and, share experiences and stuff and maybe educate some people as well. So I feel like both of us are passionate in sharing our experiences and saying the proper way to do things and how to harvest things without abusing stuff. And I feel like this would also be a good way to get that out there. So I guess that's kind of the goal and the scope of what this podcast is going to be about. Time being, we don't have a, title for the podcast. We kind of joked around and tossed out unnamed and untamed, and maybe that'll stick, but for the time being, we're just kind of going with the flow.
well said, man. So I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about like how we found our way into the outdoors and kind of like its place in our lives?
Yeah. So, we briefly had a conversation with trying a podcast in the past, and I think the way that I started really getting into fishing in general, not necessarily fly fishing, but it's funny looking back at the way that we grew up when we were younger and how the world was so much different than it is now. I was living in Austin, Texas, and was kind of a kid doing my own thing. I never really knew my father growing up, and my mom was kind of, in and out of the picture. She just kind of did her own thing. And so I just hung out with a lot of friends and kind of did my own thing. And I remember one time I was walking my dog, downtown Austin. Actually, it's kind of North Austin, metric area. And, some guy was under the bridge with his dog, and I was walking along a creek, and I was probably 9 years old, come across this guy, and our dogs played, and we kind of got to talking about fishing. And about a week later, I was walking my dog the same path, and dude shows up with a fishing pole and gave it to me. It was an old Shakespeare push-button fishing pole from Walmart. And, I remember he was telling me that he was going through a divorce and would kind of go hang out at the park to kind of clear his mind. And as a kid, I was whatever, he gave me a fishing pole. I was happy. Gave me a fishing pole and some bait, and I was ready to go. But looking back now, it's a little strange. But that's kind of how I got into fishing. Yeah. So, and I remember there was a big goldfish in this creek. It was Walnut Creek in Austin, Texas, and there was this big goldfish in there. And I targeted it forever and was never able to land it. But I did catch a lot of brim and a lot of bass out there at that little creek. But yeah, it's crazy to think that that's how I really got into fishing. Kind of strange, awkward turn of events that luckily didn't turn out badly.
Thankfully.
What about you? You got into the outdoors more because of your grandfather, wasn't it?
Yeah, man. So, can you hear the dog?
I do hear the dog. He wants to get on the podcast, or she wants to get on the podcast.
Yeah, no. So my apologies. I do have roommates. The walls are kind of thin, so there might be there might be some residual noise caught up in the microphone. So apologies for that. But yeah, her name's Maya. Sweetest dog, dude. She's awesome. Not much of that. Oh, she is, man. Not much of an outdoor dog. Well, let me rephrase that. She loves being outside, but she doesn't like water, from what I'm told. So she doesn't do well around creeks and things like that. But anyways, yeah, dude. So going back to what we're talking about, my grandfather was a big outdoorsman, but it was more out of necessity. So he grew up hunting and fishing because that's really how they got by. They would hunt rabbits and that's what they would eat, birds, things like that, whatever, fish. They would catch what they eat, all that stuff. But I don't know. He just kind of like always liked it, man. And so I could remember he would take me fishing, and I just really I don't know why, dude. I just really liked it. And I remember sometimes like after church, we'd go over and have breakfast or whatever at my grandma and grandpa's house, and I'd like beg him to take me fishing. And so sometimes he would, sometimes he wouldn't, but we would go. And but that was kind of like our thing. He got me into that, and man, I always had like I guess a passion for it. I remember, so growing up, at my house, we didn't have cable, but my grandma and grandpa did, which is kind of odd now that I think about it. But, so I used to love staying over at the house. Well, for one, like I like spending time with them, but two, I got to like watch stuff I didn't normally get to. And I remember that on Saturday mornings, if you woke up early enough, like on the sports channel, I think it was like Fox Southwest or whatever, ESPN maybe, they would show hunting and fishing shows like early, like you could see bass like tournaments and stuff like that, whatever. And so my grandpa, so normally on Saturday mornings I would wake up and watch cartoons, but whenever I stayed there, I would always get up and watch the hunting and fishing shows with him and stuff like that before I'd go and watch my cartoons, whatever. And he would like tell me his stories and things like that, and I would just ask him a bunch of questions. I was like so like infatuated, so just like curious about all that stuff. And it's also kind of like how I first saw fly fishing. And but yeah, so I guess we can get into that a little later. So grew up fishing, whatever. Hunting, not so much, just because unfortunately the state of Texas, since it's predominantly privately owned, you really either have to own the land that you want to hunt on, know somebody who will be, kind enough to let you go out there and hunt, or pay a lot of money for a lease or something like that, or day hunts, whatever the case may be. There are public lands in Texas. Let that be known, but it can be kind of crowded. You're talking about a state with huge populations and things like that, and not a whole lot of public land comparatively, I guess. So they can get pretty crowded. And the better hunts, I guess, the better units you have to apply for, and those can be kind of hard to come by. So hunting for us was never really like a thing, but it's something that I've always been curious in. Now, I didn't actually go hunting for the first time till I was a sophomore or junior in high school. I think it was a junior in high school when I first went. And I've been lucky to go on been lucky to go on a few hunts like for deer and things, but in college, in undergrad, dude, me and my friends, and it was awesome. So in South Texas, I attended a small university, but we were pretty close to some public lands for like dove and things like that. And South Texas is like known for the dove hunting. So, dude, every day we'd go out to class, like after class, we'd go, we'd try and find some birds somewhere to hunt. And so it was just awesome, dude. We did a lot of that. If we weren't hunting doves, we were out fishing on the coast. Cause we were probably 45 minutes to an hour to some prime spots on the coast. We'd go wade fishing, catch reds, some specks, all conventional gear, whatever. And then when it started cooling off and started getting too cold to kind of, wade, well, I guess not really now, but we would switch over from that, start concentrating on ducks. So undergrad was freaking awesome, man. I was lucky enough to find a good group of dudes who like to hunt, fish, and stuff like that. So we would do that. And then, yeah, man, so started grad school at the same university. And I don't know why, I decided to kind of start picking up the fly rod. And I do know why. So for me, I had dabbled in it a little bit in my younger years. I think I dedicated like one summer to try and learn it. It was all self-taught and it was terrible, but I had a lot of fun. And then I don't know why. I guess I just saw that rod sitting there in the garage one day. I'm like, man, I haven't touched the thing in a while. I think I'm going to bust it out. And I forgot how much fun it was. And it was just a ton of fun. And I decided that I wanted to try and learn, because for me, it was just going to be another tool in the toolbox, if you will. Like, I didn't want my experiences to be limited by what I did. I didn't know, like if I wanted to go trout fishing, or if I got invited to go trout fishing, I didn't want to not be able to because I didn't know how to cast a fly rod or whatever. So for me, it was more of another way to fish, another like tool to use. It just so happened that I ended up really, really liking it. And now it's my preferred way to fish. And then from there, it kind of evolved into tying flies. And I love to tie flies. And especially now, like being in grad school again, you were constantly like reading data, analyzing data, processing data. It's very analytical and it's exhausting. So it's kind of nice to channel, your creative side, if you will, by like tying flies, stuff like that. So it's just been nice to kind of have that creative outlet, if you will. And so it's kind of just, transpired from there. And, ultimately like my passion for the outdoors really kind of influenced, I guess, my career path in a sense. Like now I'm finding myself trying to get into the field of ecology. And, that's because like I care about this stuff. I care about our wild places and our wildlife, these natural resources. And I care about conserving those things and preserving them and trying to share those or save those for other generations to utilize, and so that's kind of, I guess, where I arrived or how it's kind of affected me, aside from like being in the outdoors and stuff like that. Not to say, to that being said, like I'm not an expert, in anything. Like I'm going to be wrong, of course, but I kind of like you said, like we're here to try and hopefully teach people, at least maybe see some things from different perspectives and things like that. But yeah, man. So that was kind of a long-winded deal into how I got into it. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
And I actually got into fly fishing. Probably, I'd say it was probably your first or second year getting your master's. We went together on the Blanco River, and
5 Mile Dam.
Jose was catching. Yep. Jose was catching bass left and right on a fly rod. What was it? 3-weight fly rod, maybe?
I think
smaller weight fly rod.
I think it was a 2-weight fiberglass rod.
Yeah, and he was catching them left and right, and he was catching brim, he was catching bass, and I was out there using conventional gear, spinning gear, just couldn't catch anything. And we got down to this one little, there's a ripple after an eddy on a curve of a river. There's a cliff that I used to jump off of with my dogs and whatnot. And he was fishing in there, and I'd never seen fish in that pool, because that's where everybody swims. And I'd never seen fish in there. And he said, "Hey man, you want to try it?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't know what to do with that thing." I was like, "But never have, so yeah, might as well." So he gave me kind of a quick basics on how to cast it, how to get the line out in the water. And it wasn't 10 seconds after that fly hit the water that it started taking off. And I was like, and I set the hook, and this bass starts running, and I was just like, what do I do? And he's like, just pull it in. And so I was pulling the line in, and I landed this fish, and it was probably a 8-inch largemouth bass.
Dude,
and it was the most exhilarating, fun thing that I had ever done in terms of fishing. And I was hooked. I mean, no pun intended, but I was hooked at that point. And I remember after that fishing trip, he told me I could have, well, it was either that fishing trip or the fishing trip after that. He told me I could have the rod that I was using. I was like, "Hey, you ain't going to do that." And he's like, "No, take it." And so I had that rod, and that's what I learned to fly fish on. And didn't really pick up traction until I moved to Arkansas about 3.5 years ago. And I remember on the way up here, I was listening to YouTube videos, and it was actually the Mad River Outfitters YouTube channel with Brian Fleshik that I was listening to a lot of his stuff. And I just started getting real interested because I knew that there was trout in Arkansas, and there's not very many areas in Texas you can catch trout. Which, did you listen to that podcast, the Honey Hole Hangout one?
Hilarious.
Okay,
dude. The one I sent you?
Yeah, the one you sent me. So
hilarious.
Did you listen to the section about the Guadalupe Mountain National Park?
Yeah, the native cutthroat.
We're talking about the native Rio Grande cutthroats in Texas. Yeah. So I actually read an article on it after I listened to the podcast, because I was like, "Oh, that's crazy! I had no clue that there was, indigenous cutthroats in Texas." So interesting side subject. But yeah, it wasn't until I moved to Arkansas that I started really getting into fly fishing. And now, I mean, I have probably 10 rods, and I've gotten into tying my own flies and whatever else. Don't do it as much as I would prefer to, but sometimes spare time I'll tie some stuff up. And it just kind of ran with it once I got to trout waters.
Man, it's been really cool. Like, I didn't know that you were going to get this into it. So it's been really cool to kind of see you. I mean, literally, dude, like going head first. And man, honestly, you and I have been on some freaking awesome trips, dude, and had some great days in the water. And
we have.
It's been awesome, man.
It has, and, for sure.
Kind of, dude, I wish I had more time to fish, man, but you know, it is what it is. Life happens. But yeah, a little side note. So for those of you who are going to listen to this and may not know, so the trout scene in Texas is a little odd, comparatively. So as Russell was saying, there is like some native, or there are some native like Rio Grande cutthroats, right? But we can't really fish for those. I believe they're a protected species. That being said, the trout that we can fish for are so every year, Texas Parks and Wildlife and Trout Unlimited, I believe, will stock the Guadalupe River, which is a river that runs through Central Texas, with trout. And the thing is, though, like, and it's a super popular fishery, and it's fun. It can be challenging at times, just because, man, like, everybody and their mothers out there. It is crazy, dude. It is
so pressured,
ridiculous, man. I've honestly been kind of turned away from it a little bit, just because I just don't want to have to deal with all that. You know, I'd rather go catch like a native Guadalupe bass or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I've fished the Guad before. I've caught some trout before. It's fun. It's cool. But yeah, dude, it's a hassle. It is different for sure. That being said, I think it's been consistently ranked among the top 50 best trout streams in the U.S. or something like that. So if you're ever in Texas, you want to check it out, you know, definitely give it a shot. It might be worth paying for a guide, because those fish, like as Russell said, they get super pressure, so they get super picky, and they typically will know what's up. That being said, there are some access locations, but the thing is, all along the river, it's pretty much private land, right? So to fish, you really have to kind of pay to play, if you will. So there's a lot of locations where you have to pay for parking or pay for access or whatever, and you can go down, and typically it's not that bad. It's like $5 or $10 and you can fish for the whole day usually. But yeah, it just gets crazy crowded. So you just got to kind of figure out the right times to go and stuff like that. But you know, you can have some pretty solid days out on the river. But that being said, yeah, I mean, like, and then Parks and Wildlife will also stock different ponds and things like that around the state at different times of the year. But those are more like put and take, because trout, you know, they don't do well in warm weather, and in Texas it gets hot. So they understand that they're typically going to not survive. So they'll let people go and fish for these fish, take them home and all that stuff. But even those get hammered. So you know, it's just the trout thing here in Texas is really pretty interesting. Now, there are sometimes, because there are parts of the river that stay cold enough year round to actually sustain the trout. But sometimes, like really bad years, they don't really do well. But those typically, we refer to them as holdovers, and there's even been records of trout reproducing on the Guad. So
that's what I was about to ask. I thought it was you that was telling me one time that I don't remember. I want to say it was you that told me that they have found some interesting markings on some rainbow trout that they've caught on the Guad that suggests that they were born there, that they're reproducing up closer to the cold water.
Yeah, man, which is wild. It's interesting, man, for sure. So, yeah, the whole trout thing in Texas, it's pretty crazy. But and I get the allure, you know. It's like it saves you from having to drive to Arkansas or Oklahoma or New Mexico to go catch some trout. So in that sense, it's really, really neat. It's really cool to kind of have that opportunity. And I mean, the Guad is beautiful, like, for sure. But yeah, I think I'm a little over it at this point. And there's some other podcasts that go more in detail about that, and yeah, it's freaking hilarious. Sometimes Guadalupe is known as the Drama Lupe, and for good reason. All kinds of stuff shakes down on the Guad. You know, guides yelling at people on the river and vice versa. It's like the Wild West, man. It is freaking nuts.
Acting like they own the water, which, in Texas is one of the few states to where waterways are not owned by private property owners.
Dude, yeah.
So, you can walk upstream, walk downstream, and it's all a part of the state, or a part of, I think some of it's the LCRA, and they're owned by different entities that are typically state funded, and therefore it's open water and public. Even if somebody owns property on both sides of the waterway is not owned by said property owner, where that's not the case in a lot of states. So, but people just kind of get this false authority. They feel like they own the water, or, hey, this is my spot. It gets crazy.
And to be fair though, I get it to a degree, right? Like these people, that's how they make their money. So yeah, you want to show your clients a good time. So hopefully they'll come back next year. And and there's so many guides hitting the river. Like you typically, you got to build a pretty good clientele, right? Because there's a lot of options. So let's face it. But at the same time, like you said, it's a public waterway. Anybody can use it. If someone wants to fish it, they can. If they want to swim in it, they can. If they just want to go and kayak it, they can. We have to share the resources, share the water. But so like not trying to, I guess, promote the bad behavior or whatever, but because there definitely is, good ways to kind of handle that stuff. But again, it's all public water. And kind of going back to what you say, that's the one thing that's like super interesting about Texas. Like there's so much private land, but the waters kind of gives you a little bit of allows you to get a better glimpse of and experience things that you otherwise probably wouldn't. Because essentially, as long as the water's navigable, and don't quote me on this, all right? But do your own research, please. Do your own due diligence. Check it out. But essentially, as long as you can navigate it, and you stay within the water, or I think within the highest point, I can't remember what it is, you're pretty much safe. But a lot of landowners don't know that. So I've read stories and I've heard stories that there are people who will go wading somewhere and they'll see a fence like going across the river, trying to keep, their cattle from going, wherever, or livestock going, wherever. And I get it, they want to keep their livestock where they can, within the property. But it kind of sucks for us who want to maybe go upstream or downstream or wherever. And there have been times I've heard, like, again, on the Guadalupe, people, because there are houses, there are private residences along the river. People go over there, maybe fish a little too close to a dock or something. And dude, these people start yelling at them, saying they're going to call the cops, the game wardens, whatever, because they're trespassing. And it's just nuts.
It's kind of funny to watch some of that stuff on YouTube, though. There's quite a few YouTubers out there that have YouTube shorts, or even sometimes in their main videos, with experiences with people yelling from the bank. It can be comical to watch, but there's also been situations where people get shot at, people get firearms pulled on them, and all sorts of stuff. And it just gets crazy. All it takes is somebody having a bad day at home and see somebody out close to their house, and it could set them off. And so you never know. But
yeah. Dude, I was watching this video. There are these guys, I think they were bass fishing, so they're like flipping jigs at a dock, whatever. This lady comes out telling them to move, and they're like, no, like, this is public water. We want to fish this dock. And dude, she straight up jumps in the water. I was like, what the hell, man? Like, you ain't got better things to do? Come on. But,
right. Just bugging some fishermen out there, blowing off some steam.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy. Sometimes, like, I don't know, people are astounding, but it is what it is, I guess.
That it is. 'Tis what it is. So whenever you think back on all the fishing trips you've had, what is one memory that just stands out above all when it comes to experiences?
Man, I got a lot. I don't know if I can narrow it down just to one. I mean, dude, our Arkansas trip was just jam-packed full of crazy stuff, dude.
Dude, God, that was crazy. Bass, carp, freaking koi, brown trout, cutthroat trout, all in a 2-day period.
A big cutthroat, too. Yeah, dude.
God,
that was
pretty
freaking
cutthroat,
epic, man. Oh, God, dude, the colors on those fish were unreal.
Right.
Unreal, man.
I still think about the one that got away too. That
was a big fish.
Damn near 30 inches.
Dude,
it was a big fish.
Man, let me take some time to think about that for a second. Do you have any experiences that come to mind like right off the bat?
There's a few. I think one of the first ones that comes to mind was so a little background on me. I have two daughters. They're 13 and the youngest is about to be 5. And I want to say it was last year or the year before. I was wanting to get my kids into fly fishing. My youngest loves fishing in general. She has a little Moana push button rod, and she loves going and drowning some worms. And she just loves catching the brim and playing with the worms. And she just has a good time. And she has a love for the outdoors that I think is just, there. My oldest, she kind of comes and goes. She's 13-year-old girl. She's getting into the girly stuff. But it was either last year or the year before we went camping, and she wanted to learn how to fly fish. And so I put her on a 2-weight rod and we camped at a KOA site here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And there's a little pond out there that's, stocked with brim. And I showed her how to cast, showed her how to set the hook, showed her how to reel it in, how to land the fish. And she just ran with it. And it was to the point to where it was like, okay, well, we kind of got to go eat and we got to go set up camp and we got to do this and do that. And maybe we should shower. We're kind of starting to stink. And she's like, I just want to fish. And so she stayed out there all day. And every time she'd catch a fish, I'd hear her squeal. And our campsite was, probably maybe 50, 75 yards away. And she would yell that she caught another one. And I was just like, she's just catching fish left and right. And in a 24-hour period, she stopped counting at 100. And she continued catching after that. Dude. So she caught over 100 fish in a 24-hour period, the first time she ever put a fly rod in her hand. And just seeing her excitement and her just wanting to learn more about it just kind of was like, I'm doing something right here. So that's probably one of the biggest memories that stands out. That along with that redfish that I caught recently, that was, dude. I mean, it was a big redfish and it was a good time.
Huge. Tell us. You can't just stay there and not tell the story, bro. You gotta tell us how that shook down.
So I've only had one other experience saltwater fly fishing. Went down to this was the North Jetty on Port Aransas, and it was like 35 mile per hour winds, thunderstorm moving in, and I was casting, and I was using it was my 10 weight Blaine Chocolate BC Big Fly TFO rod, and even with the double haul cast, could not get, a fly 5 feet from the jetty. I mean, it was just, the wind was blowing directly in my face. And waves were crashing like crazy. So it was pretty uneventful. There was quite a few people out there using conventional gear that they weren't having any luck either. So I was like, it's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, having hell casting. So that was my experience with saltwater fly fishing, prior to taking this trip down to Venice, Louisiana. And, we went down there. Actually, no, I lie. We went in April of 2021. I made a trip down to Venice, and it was for my birthday, and it was tough fishing. I was the only one that caught a fish, caught a largemouth bass in the bay, and that was it. I hired 2 fishing guides. 4 of us were out there and didn't see one redfish. Saw a bunch of alligator gar that wanted meat. They didn't want anything made out of feathers and fur. So, I was dropping flies directly in front of their face, 5 feet in the boat, and they're just kind of moseying on, do their own thing. I did hook and long release a spotted gar, but the only fish landed that whole trip was a largemouth bass by me. And so it was tough fishing for me and 3 of my other buddies. But there wasn't really much casting going on. It was to the point we were blind casting at nothing, just hoping something would bite, because we couldn't see anything. So uneventful trip, good time. Ate some iguana, ate some Oscar. So got to eat some interesting stuff and just kind of had a good time camping out with the dudes. But a few months back, I went down to Venice again and hired a fishing guide, went out with my buddy Brian, and it was different. I didn't know what I was doing. I got very, very excited and dropped my fly rod. I dropped a fly directly in front of a redfish, bigger redfish than the one that I actually caught. And she ate and I went to set the hook, and I couldn't clear the line. Line was wrapped around the reel. I dropped my rod in the water. I fell off the casting platform trying to grab my rod, and by the time I had rod in hand, she was already running and snapped right off. Couldn't get it to the backing, couldn't get it to the reel. Just kind of, it was wrapped around the reel and broke off. And so I was shaking like this. I was so nervous. And then didn't have any opportunities for a couple hours after that. Brian got up there and weren't seeing too many of them. Major overcast, rough weather. It was cold outside, windy, water was choppy, water was milky. Clouds started clearing. I was on the casting platform, saw probably about, I don't know, maybe 20 yards away. Dropped fly right in front of her, fought her for probably 20 minutes and got her in. She was probably, we didn't even measure her, but she was a good sized fish, probably close, maybe 30 pounds. She was a good sized redfish. Huge. And huge. So I landed that one, and that was a fight, and I caught her on what rod was I using? I think it was a 9-weight Mangrove Coast, TFO Mangrove Coast, with a BVK reel. And nice. It was a fight, but it was fun. And it was the biggest fish I've caught. I did catch that carp on Lake Hamilton here. It was a little less weighted than that, but I caught it on an 8-weight NXT TFO rod, so that was fun. But that redfish, it was I wouldn't say a catch of a lifetime, but it's up there. It was fun. It was a good first true successful experience. It's
gonna be tough to beat. Well, maybe not if you go back to Venice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I plan on eventually trying to target some tarpon and stuff like that. And if I ever make things work the way I want to, maybe a mako shark or a marlin on the fly rod would be fun someday. Rooster fish, bonefish, stuff like that. But definitely wasn't a bad first redfish to catch on the fly rod.
Dude, that's the other thing, man. That's your first redfish. You're gonna be spoiled, bro.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to top that one.
Dude, it is.
Go out there catching slot reds, and it's just not the same. I'm gonna have to be taking a 4 or 5 weight out there just to make it feel the same catching slot reds.
Dude, that's wild, man. Yeah, so I kind of thought about it. I'm going to have to break it down into 2 sections, freshwater and saltwater. And I'm only going to consider the fly fishing fish or fly caught fish for both. For saltwater, so I love saltwater fishing. I wish I could do more. But unfortunately I live several hours away from the coast. I just don't get to make it down often. That being said, I have some buddies back in my hometown that we will occasionally make a day trip down the coast and try and go fish. Sometimes unsuccessful, other times it's just tough. It's tough when you don't have the opportunity to go and scout, to go put the time in the water, to learn these places and things like that, when you're just going to go and hope for the best. And what goes with that is the weather, you go when you can, and oftentimes the weather doesn't agree. But we're going to try and make the best of it. So, that being said, my first redfish I ever caught on the fly was, it was awesome, but at the same time, kind of anticlimactic in a way, I guess. So a little backstory. One of my fishing buddies, both my fishing buddies are really big into whiskey, specifically bourbon. Stayed with one guy, because we were going to roll out in the morning together, and he has quite the collection. So we ended up staying up to midnight, having more drinks than we should have. And I probably got 2 hours of sleep, maybe. Oof. And so, dude, I was probably if we have any younger viewers, my apologies. I was probably still, drunk the next day. And dude, I was throwing up. We pulled over 5 times before we even got down to the coast so I could puke, dude. It was so bad, man. I felt like garbage. So I just got some water, grabbed some stuff for lunch at the gas station, and dude, I'm fishing. And this was during the summer, so in summer South Texas, man, it's brutal. It's 102 degrees, I think, that day, something like that. And I'm just sitting there freaking miserable, dehydrated, just feeling like straight garbage. And I'm paddling this kayak around in the flats and the wind's blowing. I was not having a fun time, man. I'll tell you that. But but that's how bad, like I wanted to catch that redfish, man. And I ended up paddling into this like little back bay area. And dude, in this particular spot, I'm not gonna, burn any spots, but this particular spot's pretty popular. And the water's pretty clear, so these fish, they get pressured quite a bit, and they're super finicky, dude. So a lot of times, like, they see you. So if you see a fish and you stand up, grab your fly rod and try and make a cast, they're gone. That or they won't eat a lot of times. But if you catch them at just the right time when they're wanting to eat or whatever, you can get lucky. At least that's been the case for me. I can't speak for everybody who goes there. So I remember, man, I was standing up on my kayak, kind of paddling around, trying to find fish. And I see like 2 or 3 bronze specks kind of cruising along this mangrove line. And so I pick up my fly rod and dude, like the wind's pushing me towards them. And I was using a longer leader than I normally use. It was I think it was like a 10 foot or 12 foot leader. Can't remember. I think it was 12 foot. And I had a redfish crack that I tied up, like a shrimp pink redfish crack. And I didn't even have enough line out to make a cast. So I just kind of like rolled cast, but it was mostly just tip it and drop the fly in front of them. And so I kind of start jigging the fly a little bit. And then I see those fish turn and I run out of room. So I kind of roll casted it back in there. And then this one fish kind of turned on it and he's just chasing it. He's on its tail. And then this one fish, I guess, who was underneath that group, which I never saw, just came up and swallowed it and like turned and dove back down. And it took me a second to process because like, dude, there's just no way that just happened right now. And it was literally right by my kayak. And I couldn't strip set. So I had to just straight up trout set that thing. So I just gave him the beans, dude, just whack as hard as I could without trying to break my rod. And dude, he freaking took off and he towed me around. It was sick, dude. It was freaking awesome. I was freaking out. And actually when I went to net that fish, the kayak I was using at the time, I have like a little elevation deck thing, whatever, that my seat is actually on. So it's kind of tippy. I leaned a little bit too far because I was using a short handled like trout net. That's all I had. And I actually fell out of my kayak. So I fell out of my kayak, but the fish stayed in the net. And so I was like standing up in my Crocs, like in the mud, holding this fish, freaking out. It was a mess, bro.
Dude, and that's awesome.
But dude, I got my fish, unhooked it, took some photos, let it go safely. And I actually lost my Crocs, man. I stood in the mud for so long, just like sucked them under. Like there's just no getting them back. So on top of like feeling like garbage and everything, dude, I lost my freaking shoes. But the highlight, I mean, that one fish made it totally worth it, dude. It was sick, man.
That's
it was
awesome.
It took zero skill, there was like zero skill involved. It was pure luck, but it was dope, dude. It was sick.
That's awesome. I remember seeing that picture and I was pretty jealous. I was like, damn, he just got himself a red on the fly rod. And we'd been talking about it for, probably a year at that point about having to make a trip down to the coast and get on some salt. And I was pretty jealous. I was like, God.
Dude, it was awesome, man.
That's awesome.
And then, I mean, when you work that hard for it, like it.
It's so much better.
Smaller fish. It wasn't small. Like, I mean, compared to yours, it was small, but it was a slot size fish, probably 22, 23 inches, something like that. I didn't even measure, but dude, that thing was awesome.
It was a pretty fish too.
And oh yeah, man, he was gorgeous, like super copper colored, beautiful fish. Tail had like that, that blue on it. Mm-hmm. It was just gorgeous. I love redfish, man. They're probably one of my favorite fish, dude.
Doesn't get your heart pumping like seeing a redfish tailing in the flats.
Oh, dude. So the weird thing is, I don't think I've actually seen a redfish tail.
Really? Dude, there was a big one tailing in right on the edge of the reeds. And we're at the end of the day, both me and Brian had already caught our fish. And we're heading on back, and we weren't out in the bay anymore. We were coming back, and there was just a bunch of reeds and stuff. and we saw her tailing. And at first I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, there's no way. Cause she was like in this tiny little cove, and like from her dorsal fin all the way to her tail was out of the water. I was like, this isn't happening.
That's crazy.
And so we got within probably 15 feet of her. And there's reeds everywhere. I couldn't cast. I kind of had to just try to lay my line on and try to roll cast towards her. And I cast at her probably about 10 times. And she must have been getting into some crabs or something, because she didn't care about anything. And she was just going in. And then she went back in the reeds. And then she came right back out 5 feet from the boat. Just could care less about where we were at and what we were doing. But it was just a sight to see. My heart was just pumping like crazy. I was like, I want to land her, but couldn't even get her to bite.
Dude, they can be freaking jerks sometimes, man. Like,
right.
But yeah, I've seen black drum tail.
Mm-hmm.
I've caught tail in black drum before. I've seen sheep's head tail. I don't think I've ever seen a redfish tail.
We come across a school of slots down there in Venice too. Same thing. Brian was on the platform at that time, and he hooked. I don't know if he landed. I think he hooked it. He may have landed it. Then he caught a flounder. He was casting it at it was either a black drum or it was a redfish, and out of nowhere, flounder come out of nowhere and hit. I think he was maybe using a clouser or a Hopedale crab or something like that. Flounder got it. But
interesting.
Yeah, we saw quite a few tailing ones out there in Venice.
That's pretty.
So, what about your freshwater memory?
Oh, dude, I think, man, my freshwater memory, it would be a tie between the koi fish.
Oh, dude, that was so awesome.
And the brown. Yeah.
Both Arkansas.
It would probably, it'd probably have to be, both in the same like weekend too,
right, yeah,
dude. So, so Russell, he mentioned, you mentioned that carp earlier, mm-hmm. and he actually caught that the same day I caught the koi fish. So there's an arm. Well, so part of the lake kind of drains in behind where Russell lives, and so one morning he woke up and he heard some splashing, and he looks, and dude, there was just carp, like everywhere in that area for whatever reason. And he's like, dude, we want to go fishing? I was like, heck yeah, man. So we strung our rods together really, really quick, and then we just walked out there. And dude, the carp were freaking massive. The gar were big too. And so we were casting at these things. Oh man, for probably like 2 hours. Never got like a solid bite, whatever. And then finally, like, I see this koi fish. He just kind of like appeared out of nowhere like a ghost, dude. He was like, you see this big gold thing with long fins. It was a butterfly koi, so it's the ones that had those really long fins. And he just kind of appeared out of nowhere, kind of like made his way through the grass. And then I just saw the fish, and I was like, man, I don't think anything's going to happen, but whatever. And I just laid a cast like pretty much a couple inches from his face, and I saw him turn. And I didn't even feel him eat. I just saw him kind of turn and kind of go down to where my fly was. And I was like, well, I'm just going to see what happens. And I just set the hook, and sure enough, dude, like I felt weight, and I saw him shaking his head freaking out, and he took off, and I was losing my mind, bro. You probably remember. I was like, dude, I got the gold one. And I was just freaking out, dude. I was like shaking and stuff.
I dropped my rod, brought my net, and I hauled it over there.
Dude, I was shaking so hard, man, because like I have been obsessing about catching a carp for a long time. Like it's been on my hit list for a while, just because one, I mean, I've hooked a few, right? But I've never landed one. Common carp, and they've whooped me every single time. Just never had a chance because I didn't have the right gear. The only two I ever hooked were on a 3-weight. Graphite rod, essentially, a dry fly rod, whatever, if you will, and not the right tool for the job. It was just kind of like an accident that happened. But yeah, dude, and they whooped me. And probably the best thing, honestly, because that would probably like not be good finding them on a small tackle like that. But anyways, so I've been wanting a carp so bad, so I got super stoked seeing these carp and things like that, and then this freaking koi fish that I didn't think I would get to eat, and then I'm fighting this thing, and dude, he was just like Man, he was so pretty. It was crazy, dude. That was sick. Like, I don't know how I managed to catch a koi fish before I caught a carp, but whatever. I'll take it. I ain't complaining.
And a pretty one. And what isn't that a kind of rare species of carp or of koi?
I don't know, because koi fish have so many different so many fish have so many different like variations. I just know that one's a butterfly carp because like how the fins were, and I think it was called like a golden dragon koi or something like that. Supposedly, like I posted it to some Facebook group that I'm in, and someone was like, "Dude, that's like $1,000 fish, man." And I was like, "Well, it's out there swimming still, so because we let it go." And I was like, "Shit, man!" But what's it called? But yeah, so we just let it go, and then the crazy thing is, there's like 3 other ones, and there was one really, really huge orange, like it was like a tricolor one, it's like orange, black, and white, or whatever. That thing was huge.
Yeah, like a calico colored fish.
Yeah, dude, that thing was sick. And then not long after that, you caught that big freaking carp, man. I mean, that thing was a butterball. I mean, massive.
Yeah, it was.
And dude, you fought that thing for like, I don't know, 15 minutes on an 8 weight with the drag locked down, spooled you almost like twice, or it was nuts.
Yeah.
Dude. That was a crazy moment.
I think I tried to resuscitate that fish longer than I fought it. Yeah. Poor thing just kept laying on its side, and I'd work it more, and finally he took off, but my goodness, he was tired. I was tired.
Yeah, dude, that was sick.
But that net that I got it helped big time.
It did. It was pretty nice, man. I knitted that fish for you. It was nice having like that handle for extra leverage. And then the basket's huge, so it fit no problem. That's a pretty slick net. So that was like, and that was the start of the trip pretty much.
That was actually, I think that was on my actual birthday, wasn't it?
I think it was.
I think that was my birthday, and it was the day after that we went up to the White. Went and watched Garth Brooks, and then went to the White River. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was in the morning, and then I think we ended up leaving to the campsite, and then we watched Garth Brooks that night, which was a freaking epic show. If y'all ever,
oh my goodness,
if you've never
seen an entertainer,
dude, if y'all have never seen Garth Brooks, man, holy crap, can that dude put on a show? It was insane. It was so good, dude.
We watched him up in Fayetteville at the Arkansas Razorback football stadium, and there was over 80,000 people there. And that same year, I went to I'm a diehard Longhorn fan, and I went to the Longhorn-Arkansas game in Arkansas as a Longhorn fan. And there was 76 or 78,000 people there, and it was crazy packed. And then went to the Garth concert, and it was more packed. And then on top of that, the field was covered with, people as well. Floor passes and stage passes and stuff. And it was just, there was so many people there. It was insane. And the show was just amazing.
Oh man, incredible, dude. That guy, like you said, he's a performer. He was literally going all over the stage. He was drenched in sweat by the end of the night, but it was freaking awesome. And we had to walk 2 miles too from where we parked just to go to the stadium. It was crazy. And
hoping not to get towed parking in a closed business parking lot.
Luckily, we did not. So after that concert, we go back to the campsite, and then you're like, I think I'm gonna go sleep outside, and because they had hammocks and stuff set up, and I was like, well, I guess I'll sleep in the truck. And dude, it got cold that night. It was warm during the day, and it got cold that night. And I just couldn't get comfortable in the truck. And then I think you came, and we had to leave early anyways, right? We had to leave early to get to the river.
Yeah, we had to leave at 2 or 3 in the morning because where we were launching at on the White River was 2 hours and 45 minutes away from where we were staying in Fayetteville. Yeah. And the guide originally told me, it's 45 minutes away. And we didn't pull it up on GPS until after the concert. We're well, we got an hour or two to sleep till we got to drive 2.5 hours.
And dude, we probably slept maybe 30 minutes or an hour, if that. And dude, you came over to me because you were shivering, you were cold, and you're like, dude, I'm awake, you're awake, you just want to drive? I was like, yeah, man, let's go. So we left on 30 minutes of sleep, whatever. We got some energy drinks, whatever we could, just to kind of keep us awake. Got to the boat launch where we're supposed to meet the guide early, and and we saw trout rising. So we just tied on some flies, and I think I caught a little rainbow like right before the guide even got there. First fish off the white. And do you want to kind of plug the guide if anybody might be interested?
Yeah, we can. Which guide was it? That was what was it?
It was
Eddie Line Drifters.
I think so.
I think his handle is Eddie Line Drifters on Instagram. Great guide, knows his way around the river.
Or is it Eddie Line Fly Fishing? I think it's Eddie Line Drifters. I think you're right. But yeah, super cool dude. If we got your handle wrong, our apologies. But definitely check him out. At least give it a shot. But maybe we can even like put a link or something to his socials.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We'll definitely link him on here because he put us on some good fish for sure.
Dude, talk about. So, first of all, cool dude, knows the river, man. He's awesome. But yeah. So we started drifting, and we started out throwing streamers, and I was throwing this. It was a 9-weight actually. And we moved a couple fish on the streamers, but no takers really. So we switched over to some nymph rigs. And dude, you freaking tore it up. You caught some nice browns, and the biggest. Well, in the words of the guide, the biggest cutthroat that's ever hit his boat, or that's ever hit the deck, and that thing was a monster. It was huge. It was pretty. Man, that thing was. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was perfect cast. It was a dead spot directly in the ripple behind a big boulder. We come around, and I just dropped it right on the other side of the boulder. Perfect drift, and set the hook. And I thought it was a brown originally. Just looking at the coloring of it, I was like, "Oh, that's a good brown. It's a good brown." And it was probably about 10 minutes after I caught my first brown. And, brought it in, and I think it caught it on a purple Duracell, probably maybe size 16,
sounds about
size
right.
18 maybe, bead-headed Duracell. And he netted it, brought it in, and right when he started lifting out of the net, I saw the red. And I was like, that's a cutthroat. And then he freaked out. The guy freaked out. He's like, that's the biggest cutthroat I've ever had in my boat. That is a solid fish. And, we took our pictures, released, it was a clean release, healthy fish. And, God, it was so exhilarating. And it was crazy because it was a little bit bigger than the first brown that I caught. And I was like, oh, I'm getting bigger. And then I was like, wait, that's not a brown. That's a cutthroat. And it was such a pretty fish.
Dude, that was freaking epic, man. We were all freaking out. We're like, oh my God. We're like high-fiving, taking photos, like trying to make sure this fish swims off healthy and stuff. And it did, thankfully. But dude, that was freaking epic, man.
It was.
So you got into some solid fish. No, I think that day. No, never mind. Sorry. I was going to say that day was your birthday. I don't think it was. But yeah, man, it was your birthday weekend is what it was. But yeah, dude. Yep. So the fish gods bless you with some solid fish for your birthday, dude.
For sure.
And then I guess that's where I kind of come in with the second memorable freshwater fish. So I to be totally honest, I don't like nymphing. I'll do it. It catches fish, like for sure. It's just not my favorite way to fish in general. And I've done it on the quad, caught fish. I just don't like it. So after a while, and I caught a couple rainbows, but nothing crazy. After a while, I was like, man, I'm going to go back and throw that streamer. And the guide's like, I did it for two reasons. One, like, I feel more confident throwing streamers. And two, I figured, like, since you're running the nymph rig, I could throw the streamers so we can kind of like, split and conquer, if you will, kind of see what's really going on, whatever. And the guy even said that it was getting towards like the tail end of what they consider like streamer season. So he didn't have like super high confidence that it would work, but I was like, whatever, dude. I'm gonna try it anyway. And sure enough, man, like I was throwing this thing around and there was like this little eddy, and I wanted to kind of get the fly to drift into it. So I cast it in front of it and try to give it enough time for it to get down in there. And I gave it a couple strips, hard strips, and then I just feel it like just stop. I thought I got snagged on a boulder or something, dude. It just came to a dead stop, and I just kind of strip set. And I thought I was hung up at first, and then I feel like the head shakes, and it kind of like took a second to register. I was like, holy crap, I got a fish. And I was like, fish on. And I just start, like pulling this thing in, and I was getting excited because I had never caught a brown trout before. And that was like the thing that I wanted the most. And And so it's digging, dude. I remember I have this 9 weight and it is like bent over, and I was like, dude, this is freaking nuts, man. I've never felt this from a trout before. And then we finally see color, and the guy's like, it's brown, and I'm freaking out trying to keep my cool so I'm not like gonna bust this thing off, whatever. And we got it in the net, and dude, I just lose my freaking mind. I was so pumped. And you got some awesome pictures of that fish, dude. And it wasn't the biggest brown. That was the end of the day. You caught the biggest brown of the day, but dude, the colors on that fish were like, man, pristine. It was so pretty. Like the little red spots and everything, freaking gorgeous.
A very pretty fish.
And dude, it was awesome, man. He like straight up T-boned that streamer, and the guy's like, dude, I can't believe you actually caught a fish on the streamer. I was like, hey man, I don't know what happened, but I'll take it. And dude, that was just, man, that trip in itself was freaking epic. But I think those two are probably going to be the most memorable fish on the fly that I've caught in freshwater. That like when I think about it, they're the ones that come to mind first.
Right. See, and I got to capture the whole thing. I got pictures of your reaction. I got pictures of you setting the hook. I got pictures of the whole thing, and it's just crazy seeing your facial expressions and the excitement. And you're standing up, and your arms are up, and you're loving it, and you're smiling ear to ear grin.
Oh, dude,
it was awesome to catch,
bro. And I was shaking too,
moments.
man. Oh, dude, God, dude, it's yeah, man. It was freaking epic, dude.
Definitely some good time.
And that was just last year, man. So,
we'll
see what 2023
plan something for my birthday coming up this year in the next couple months. Maybe we can, plan another trip down in Texas.
There been talks of a Devil's River trip?
I have some news about that one.
Dude, no.
Yeah.
What's up?
So,
we can talk about it off.
Yeah, we can talk about it, but yeah, it's gonna be the plan will be a little different on that one. It can still happen, but the 4-day self trip probably is the best idea. So, yeah, we could talk about that off the podcast and go from there.
So for those of you who may have never heard of the Devil's River, definitely check it out. It is probably one of the most pristine stretches of river in the state. I mean, super clear. And it is an incredible fishery. I mean, huge smallmouth. You can even find stripers or striped bass in some places, big carp. I mean, just a huge variety and diversity of fish species. And it is just epic. The problem is, because of its location, it takes a little bit more planning than your run-of-the-mill trip. So if it's your first
planning, experience, knowledge.
Yeah, because I mean, you're literally out in the middle of nowhere where you may not have any cell reception. People have died floating or fishing the Devil's River in the past, just because like heat exposure, because it gets hot in that part of the state. Flash flooding, it's prone to flash flooding, so you got to check weather and all that stuff. So so logistically, yeah, it's just it can be a beast. So definitely check it out. And if it's something that you would like to do, just do your due diligence. Be careful. Be safe. Find a guide. Hire a guide if necessary. But yeah, not
definitely
to say that
recommended.
You need to. It can definitely be done like DIY. But having someone who has had experience on the river is definitely going to be worth the money. But yeah, anyways, I digress. I never fished it. Definitely want to. You should check it out if you've never heard of it. Super cool fishery.
Speaking of pristine waters, what about the Buffalo National River here in Arkansas? That was a good trip too. Dude. That was a great trip. Definitely need to do it a different time of year when the water's not so low. When it's not as windy. God, it's gorgeous out there.
Oh man, yeah. So it was October, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so October. So Russell actually hit me up. He's like, "Hey, man, Buffalo River National Park is like a dark sky area, and supposedly we're going to be able to see like the Milky Way and all this stuff and be able to get some great shots." So kind of a backstory. Russell and I both like photography. We both try to dabble in it when we can, and he's actually the one that got me into photography because, as he knows, I used to never be able to take a picture to save my life. Not to say that, I still can, but I'd like to think I got better. But anyway, so he's like, dude, we can come, we can take some photos, we can do some fishing and all this stuff. And I was getting pumped. I was kind of afraid that I wouldn't be able to because of, I'm in bless you, because I'm in grad school, and finding the time to do that can be kind of tough, especially because I was supposed to start my field season, but it just so happened there were some things that occurred that wouldn't allow me to start my field data collection. So I was able to make the trip. And so I went up to Arkansas. We went to the Buffalo National River, freaking beautiful place. We got some awesome shots of the Milky Way. I caught my first smallmouth on that trip. The river, man, I mean, even in like 12, 14 feet of water, you can see straight down to the bottom. Like, it is nuts. And I'm sure it would have been better had we had the right equipment. And if the wind wasn't so brutal.
Oh, the wind was brutal. 30 mile per hour wind was blowing us upstream. Dude. Anchored. I was anchored, getting blown upstream by the wind. It was crazy.
Oh man. Yeah. It was freaking nuts, dude. And because we didn't really know what, how deep it can get. We didn't have, the right line set up, but we just fished what we had and stuff, but we still caught fish. It was still good. Definitely would like to go back under better circumstances and with the right gear and everything to try and get on some smallies. I think we could tear them up if we do it right.
For sure.
But yeah, also another great place if you guys are into that kind of stuff. Even if you don't want to fish, if you just want to kayak, the scenery was amazing, freaking beautiful. There's
hundreds of miles of trails too. So if you're into hiking, biking, backpacking, there's hundreds of miles that range all the way up to Missouri. I mean, there's beautiful scenery out there. There's cliffs, there's waterfalls, there's creeks, there's rivers, there's campsites. It's all national forest, so you can pretty much set up camp. Obviously, you don't want to be starting forest fires, so be careful and do your research on what you can and can't do. But I mean, just a gorgeous place to be. The river itself is a national river. It's untouched, undammed. Everything there is like there's no stalking. There's no introduced species. It's just all native, indigenous, and natural. And it's in a part of the national forest where there's no pollution. I mean, the water is just clear, and just a great fishery in general.
Dude, and the people there are really nice too.
Extremely friendly.
Some awesome folks. Yeah, dude, it was. I mean. Awesome place. If you want to go on a family road trip, whatever, your kids would love it. Your significant other would love it. Definitely worth checking out for sure. For sure.
And we've had some good trips these past couple of years, man.
Dude, I was thinking about that, man. Yeah, it's been a blessing for sure, dude. It's been awesome.
It definitely has.
You just need to come to Texas so I can put you on some fish, dude.
Right, dude. I need to. We'll make it happen soon for sure. When I was listening to that Honey Hole podcast about the Guadalupe Mountain National Park, I was like, that would have been awesome if we could fish for some native Texas real grand cutthroats. But man, I need to head down there and just find some spots that we can go and hit some water that I've never hit. Maybe catch some fish. I'm still itching to get on a striper, man.
I've never caught a striper too, but I know of some spots that could potentially hold them. I
know areas up here that have them, and they're caught quite often. Up here, I just haven't had the opportunity to get to them. Typically, you need a boat, which is in the works. But a kayak it would be fun to land one on a kayak and kind of be towed around.
Oh yeah, dude! I tell you what, man. If you want to go kayaking, the South Llano River, I think you would like that a lot, bro.
Isn't that where we went that one time? When Adeline was a baby?
Yes, but that was a different part.
I see.
So the like 2 summers ago, some friends and I floated the South Llano that kind of runs through Junction. So
I see.
So we said we did a longer trip than we should have. We did I think it was like a 8 mile or 10 mile float or whatever, which was freaking nuts. Never should have done that. But the state park, the South Llano State Park in Texas, was the takeout spot. So we put up a couple miles upriver. But dude, one, the landscape is like like you're floating almost through like if you're floating through the western edge of the hill country. So it's going to be a bit more hilly, a little bit drier, but dude, it's like the landscape's gorgeous for 1. 2, the river really nice, really clean. And 3, man, you can tear some fish up. Dude, I think myself, I probably caught over 100 fish that day. Between all of us, we just lost count. It was just insane, dude. Quads, all kinds of sunfish, freaking gar everywhere, carp. I mean, dude, it is insane. I think you would like that float a lot. It's a cool river, man. I want to go do it again. Is
there camping nearby too?
You can camp at the state park.
Might have to make a multi-day trip on that one.
Yeah, dude. There's
might be a good substitute for the Devils for the time being.
Yeah, for the time being, for sure, dude. I think so. If you want to get on smallmouth, I think there's a river closer to home where that might happen. Unfortunately, I don't know that river very well.
The Sam?
Supposedly, no. The San Marcos. Supposedly, there's some smallmouth in there. Supposedly. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But, yeah, man. Or you can just catch some, like, monster native quads. Quads are...
We just go in the name of research, cool man.
Dude, I know, right? Dude, yeah. Quads are... Texas has a, like, pretty cool, diverse array or diverse species in terms of, like... really anything. But the quads are really, really neat. They are native only to Texas and only to, like, the hill country rivers of Texas, really. And it's actually the state fish. They're one of my favorites. They don't get very big. The state record, and I guess by default, the world record is only like 3.7 pounds, something like that. But that thing is like a freaking football, dude. And they fight so hard for their size. It's insane. And then my other favorite fish is a Rio Grande cichlid.
Oh, those things are so fun.
They're the only cichlid native to the United States. And they are a true native to Texas. And yeah, dude, they're super cool looking fish. And this is the only place where you can catch them, really. Like, well, let me rephrase that. Because I think there's been reports of them being caught in Louisiana. This is the only place you can catch them within the native range, I guess. But yeah, dude, Rio Grande cichlids are freaking awesome. And dude, they're all over Central Texas. You can find them in the South Llano, creeks and rivers around Austin. Dude, yeah, super cool fish.
That's another fish where my first one spoiled me. The first reel I caught, remember when I was fishing with you on a 2-weight? It was a freaking dinner your first, plate.
Man. Yeah, that fish, that cutthroat was your first cutthroat. Mm-hmm. Your first brown was a freaking solid brown. Yeah, man, your first. Yeah, when it comes to fishing, your first have been
massive. My first Rio Grande cichlid was a dinner plate.
Monsters. That's crazy, dude. I don't know how you're gonna top all those, man. Tough to beat.
It's gonna be tough to beat, but hey, I gotta have something to work for, right?
Yeah. You got some crazy luck, dude.
Yeah.
Some good luck.
Beginner's luck for sure. But am I still considered a beginner? What is it? 8 years into fly fishing now? Yeah, one of those.
Dang, it's been that long?
Yeah. It was after I had my house built, 2015. It's 2023 now.
Oh, dude, we're getting old,
brother. I've fly fishing for 8 years now. Yep.
That's crazy.
You're the one that's geriatric, old dirty 30 now already.
Hey, man, you're coming up, brother.
I got a few more months.
Oh, man. Well,
it looks like we're getting up there on time, man. We should probably start closing her off. Next thing you know, we're going to be sitting here for 3 hours talking about dogs.
Oh, dude, I know. Like that one time at the bar.
Right.
Oh, good
Poor
time.
Matt.
But anyways, yeah, so sorry for running it so long. But yeah, if this content... We plan on, doing content like this. Of course, Russell and I are both outdoorsmen, fishermen, hunters, whatever. But that's not our only interest. We like to go camping. We like to hike, outdoor cooking, things like that. And we want to try and introduce that or bring that kind of content into this podcast as well. So if
integrate a lot of our interests and be able to provide a lot more for the listener.
And even like extend beyond that, we want to learn too. There may be things that we would really like that we don't know about or just haven't had the chance to really do or engage in. And so really the goal, I guess, of this podcast is kind of inspire you to kind of step out of your comfort zone, to learn about things maybe kind of pique an interest in things that you maybe wouldn't otherwise, stuff like that. And also we want it to be an educational thing. We want to try and bring in some really knowledgeable people and share that with you guys. And then also we're both big into conservation, so we like to try and promote that as well. And if any of this interests you, we would encourage you and really appreciate it if you followed along with us. And we'll try and put out, content regularly, but between your schedule and mine, it's going to be kind of hard, but we'll get the hang of it. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, we'll definitely make it work.
A name first, though.
Right, that'll come. I mean, man, I'm kind of liking the unnamed and untamed because we're kind of running with the theme of hitting native waters and going after native species and educating on native stuff. And I remember in the past we talked about starting a cookbook using harvesting native species, using native herbs and stuff, and making recipes from, God forbid you get lost somewhere and still use your culinary skill to make some gourmet meals with what you can find around you. So, unnamed, untamed could be
man. If we could bring a forage expert, dude, that'd be sick.
Oh, dude, that would be awesome. Hey, maybe we can get the guy from Nature Walk. That's neat.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be.
Do you know how this is? Wait, what did he say?
He goes.
You know how you can tell this is an aspen? You can tell by the way it is.
Never gets old.
Oh, dude, that guy is great.
Cracks me up.
He would be. That would be a fun interview for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Also, let me preface this. I am not a fish ecologist or a fishery biologist. So if I got any of that stuff wrong, please feel free to fact check me. We're all in this to learn and to educate and to, grow and get better. But so. Agreed.
And if you have any information that we missed that you feel like needs to be shared, feel free to leave it in the comment section or private message, either me or Jose. And we can always include it in a future podcast or respond in comments. So.
Yeah, or if there's any like conservation stories or things that you think would be really important to know and get the word out about, definitely share that with us too. It'd be good to kind of put that out there.
I agree. So with that being said, I guess this is going to conclude the first episode of our podcast, and hopefully we'll get this posted up soon and get ready for the next one. And if there's any topics that you guys want to hear, any stories that you know of, if you know us personally that you want us to share, or just anything you want to know about, we can always do our research and learn about certain things and talk about certain areas, and more than willing to listen to criticism y'all have. So feel free to message us or comment and let us know what we could do different, what we could do better, or what you want to hear next.
Heck yeah, man. Sounds good.
Well, that'll work. Well, thank you for listening. Feel free to follow along with us, subscribe, like, share. We'd appreciate it.